Alright, let me ask you guys a question. How many of you are tired of fighting the Carno? It doesn't matter if you're an Omni pack, a Trudon pack, playing Sarah, or even as a Dialo gang. You get confronted with this very fast predator that you just cannot escape, but it also has an insane hitbox when they hold the right mouse button that almost cannot be avoided. You can no longer dodge them. In Spyro, we had no issues with this, but currently it is shit. Even if you sidestep them on your screen, they will still hit you from Africa. And people, they have been pointing at poor netcoding, hyping, and other things. But what if I told you that the answer is probably much simpler than that? So, what is actually going on with Carno? Carno players, good ones at least, are able to break the Carno animations. They are basically going so fast between actions that the game cannot keep up. And it creates additional desync on top of the already existing desync between what you are seeing and what is going on. Of course, this gets worse on high ping, but even on low ping, it is extremely noticeable and it has you believing that someone is very laggy, while in reality, it is simply busted. And it is not the hitbox, guys. We have tested the hitbox and it is actually quite good. Instead, I think it is caused because the prediction system fails to keep up with it, and instead of seeing real-time estimates, we see a delayed version of Carno while you are predicted properly by the system. So sidestepping it is that much more difficult. The game just cannot keep up with Carno quick swapping when it's stopping and going, and equally it shows the Carno you properly. And I think the prediction system breaks when you play Carno is because you are holding the right mouse button to charge and then you stop and you go and you automatically resume ramming. And it just breaks the whole animation cycle. Here are a few examples of it and what it looks like. I have been trying my best to learn how to dodge these to make sure that it isn't just skill issues, but it is just impossible and unreasonable. Now, I'm sure there is a movement pattern that could bypass this with some rocket science. However, in everyday gameplay, this just ends up being too much for the average OWL player. And instead of skillfully being taken out, you kind of feel completely overpowered by desync, even if you are accurately dodging the attacks on your end. And why is it too much? Now, a lot of people might say like, but bro, Carno is always getting nerfed. And I agree with that. And they probably think like now it can finally do what it is supposed to do and be dangerous to small game. Sure. And you might also have people saying like, bro, one Omni should not defeat a Carnotaurus, like you're on some crack shit. And I'm gonna say fair enough, I agree with that as well. And this has nothing to do with winning the matchup. I have no issues to dying to a strong Carno player who destroys me. It happened before this was the case and I never had issues with it. I still wanted it buffed. And I think the real issue is simply with being unable to avoid the rams when you actually avoid a ram. And not for you to sidestep it and see a Carno flying past you about 5 meters away and still ragging on your tail or worse, on your head. This simply makes people not appreciate the Carnotaurus when fighting against it, regardless if it's a good or bad player. It just feels extremely cheesy to die to something you cannot avoid at all. I'm gonna be listing all the issues, the nerfs I think it needs, and buffs I think it needs as well to compensate for the nerfs. I know that the devs have already got a nerf planned, so yeah guys, Carno is getting nerfed, already confirmed, but I do not think their solution will fix the issue. See, the nerf that is incoming is that the Carno won't be dealing constant damage anymore while holding right mouse button and ramming. Instead, you will have to press an additional key to actually rag your damage. And yeah, basically same as Sarah. You're charge biting, but you still have to left click. And you will have to time it. Truthfully, it makes little sense to me, because where does the kinetic energy go if you don't press it? But I can see that they acknowledge the problem and are trying to come up with a solution. But it won't be enough. And I'm gonna try to do a better job. Now, a few rules I have when I make these theoretical reworks on a playable, and what should be changed is determined by several factors. 1. PvP balance and survival balance. This means interval should exist in combat and it should be able to skillfully land its attacks with a reward for doing so and equally be able to survive properly. 2. It has to be able to avoid matchups it has no chance of winning. 3. It has to be able to have success through skill expression rather than hand-holding by design. This will add challenge and difficulty to a playable and allows for a skill ceiling to exist. And current Carno does not follow these rules for proper balance to exist. Because 1, there is no real reward for landing the ram attack, and it does not need skill for it to land its attacks due to extreme visual delay. 2, it is able to avoid unfavorable matchups, so this is good. However, the reverse is currently true, that if you get hunted by a Carno, you have no chance of getting away unless you lose line of sight in the forest. But on the plains, you are screwed with no chance to survive due to the inability to sidestep a ram properly. 3. It has a high success rate even if you are very bad at this dinosaur, due to its simplistic design after the rework. There is no real challenge or difficulty other than learning how to hold right mouse button and drifting at the same time. The skill ceiling is pretty low. Let's get into the root of the issues. I'm gonna go over the issues one by one, the nerfs that should be applied, and also buffs that I think the Carno deserves to not suffer too much from the nerfs. These go hand in hand, and these buffs only make sense if the nerfs get applied. Let's start out with the issues. I'm just gonna name them one by one. I made a little list. Ram hitbox being an active hitbox is a problem. You cannot dodge it. That's a problem. Animations don't play properly. That's a problem. It is too easy to play as you just run and hold right mouse button. This is a problem. It chips you down with unavoidable hits. This is a problem. Alt bite does not always correctly show where it lands. Also a problem. So, what should be changed to fix the problem? First of all, I think the ram hitbox should no longer be an active hitbox, but they have already planned that. Even though it doesn't make sense with the kinetic energy thing that I said, it's still a really good solution because this game has a terrible desync issue that they cannot fix inherently. Another point, I think they should deactivate RAM when the Carno stops, instead of instantly activating it when it starts running again. A new RAM should require a wind-up time of about 1.5 seconds to reach max speed, and the RAM should only activate if the Carno is at max speed, no longer from standing still to 100 like a bullet, because that is causing some of the issues. Also, I think we should decrease max group size to 2, and that is only if the buff that I have planned for it to become 1.8 tons again gets applied as well. So this last one is just only if that also happens. And while speaking about the buffs, let's get into the buffs. I think these things should be added or improved. RAM should inflict its CC effect. CC stands for crowd control, basically meaning the stun or the knockover. And it should inflict it consistently without having to cover a lot of distance. Because if you need to time the attack and you need to wind up as well, then just give them the CC. The reward should exist consistently. It should also get more food from killing smaller prey, like a little multiplier on intake, so that they do not have to go on a murder spree. Because you can make them small game hunters, but if they always have to murder like 10 Dryos to get their meal, it's crazy. Also, I think we need to increase Carno's weight back to 1.8 tons. Also buff knockover to allow it on same weight or below, and stun the target otherwise, and self-stun only if exceeding double the Carno's weight. Now that is what I would do with Carno if I was a developer. And yeah, let me know, what do you think Carno needs? Do you think this would work? Doesn't solve the issue? Because I think like the biggest issue that everybody has with Carno right now is that you just cannot dodge the motherfucker. I also have some honorable mentions. Like I've heard somebody suggest that the alt attack should instead become some kind of a headbutt that knocks people over, kind of like what the Becky does. I think that's a really cool idea. Yes, it would add more than just its simplistic design that we currently have, where you just hold right mouse button and point at something. It would give it more to work with. To be honest, I said mentions, but that's pretty much it. Yeah, so send this video to the devs if you think they should hear what I have to say. And I wish you guys a nice day. Cheers.